third wave, and Tony should be able to tell us about that.
Thank you, President Fox. Prime Minister, let's go into that. So where does the responsibility lie upon in educating the global workforce when we're seeing the private sectors mainly give to development and health and education being at the bottom of the barrel? Does it fall upon private sectors to contribute more towards education, or perhaps on governments to invest more in financial aid to make these opportunities available for those wanting to?
I think the responsibility is on both, but here's what I learned trying to do this in government, because I came to power and I was once asked, just before I took office, what my top 3 priorities were. And I said education, education, and education. Right? Those are my priorities for government. Never quite works out like that when you get there, by the way. But I then learned something over the first term of office. And it's one of the things that I think is most interesting about political leadership. Because no one ever prepares you to become the leader of a country. You know, the only job I ever had in government was Prime Minister, which, you know, is fine. You start at the top and go out at the top, that's good. And I remember about 18 months into my term of office, I actually wanted to go out and say to the country, look, I'm still learning, you know, at the moment. And I said this to my office there, you can't say that, people will panic, you know. But truthfully, I did learn. And one of the things I learned was that articulating a concern for education was not enough. You had to work out how you were actually going to implement that concern. And there were 3 things that I learned. The first is that some of the structures of public education do not deliver the results they should. And we're going to be honest about that and admit it. And where they don't, we've got to intervene, if necessary, with different structures and different providers, because I do not accept, no matter how poor a child's background, that they cannot be properly educated if they're given the right opportunity to be properly educated. So we had to put through very, very difficult education reforms as a result of that. The second thing I learned was something President Fox mentioned a moment or 2 ago. And here's the problem with government. Government, you know, I always say to people, if the Labour Prime Minister of 1945, you know, after the war, Britain elected a Labour Prime Minister, it was a great Labour government, 1945, if he came back to the UK today, he would think everything had changed in society, the way we lived, and technology, and how we worked, and the makeup of society, and then he'd go back into the centre of government and he'd feel completely at home. Everything would be totally familiar to him. And none of us would create today education systems of the same nature if we were starting today. And the reason for that is technology alone. So, you know, the kind of ideas about distance learning, about individualized learning, technology is absolutely an essential part of how we educate people in today's world. And the third thing is, if you want children to be decently educated, you've got to value teachers and give them some pride of place in the society in which we live. So the third way that I came to in the end was a combination of investment and reform, and I still believe that is basically the right.
It's a perfect transition because we're talking about